peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Kenya is a model of peace, an island of peace in the region of turmoil. Kenya presents a unique position in the sense that the banking, the economic hub of the Great Lakes region, the ticking veins of this region remain here. Despite the few hiccups, Kenya has been the center of international conferences ranging from UN. Kenya is also equally the headquarters of one of the major offices of the United Nations in south of Sahara. The United Nations offices in Gigiri present a position, a very unique position for this country called Kenya to take on the mantle to lead the other states within the sub-Saharan region for the year 2022. It is therefore very, very important for us to support the Kenyan people, the Kenyan nation, the Kenyan government in search for this slot. The question of my dear brothers of Djibouti, I am a Pan-African. But we have had countries in Africa that always violate African Union Charter and regulations. One of them is Morocco, which said for 32 years it was not a member of African Union until it saw its own isolation that it decided to apply to be readmitted in the African Union. Djibouti is a member of the African Union. We have quite a lot of things in common with Djibouti. We have educated some of their people here. We have close links. But Djibouti seemed to be taken and whipped, used to whip by one non-African state party that has captured the African Union. If you look at the countries, the 13 that voted for Djibouti, you can tell the story of why African Union has a very big problem and an uphill task in resolving and bringing unity amongst the African states. Therefore, Kenya remains one of the best contenders, and we want to encourage the people of the world to help to vote for Kenya. Thank you. Today marks a great day for me, for us in Pan-African Forum UK Limited. Stand above the threats, intimidation, blackmailing that people receive, so as not to speak about what is happening in Somalia. The matter of the Somali link or Somalia link with Qatar must be discussed openly by countries that are taking part in Somalia. The pacification of Somalia, for Somalia to become a state again, there is need for cooperation. The cooperation to bring about peace is more important than the cooperation of countries that are seeking minerals, diamonds, gold, oil, skins, animals, and the rest from Somalia. My organization does not have a share, neither is it seeking to get anything, but to have Somalia and protect the Ugandan and the Kenyan troops, plus Burundian troops that have gone to do a good job in Somalia. Every time we hear reports of money laundering, some people think it is difficult to find out who has laundered which money, where and how. For us in Pan-African Forum UK Limited, we have networks that have exposed even the ICC before, and we have brought it to its knees for this type of money laundering. Qatar has become the main funder of terrorism in the world. We can now safely agree and safely agree to the people, the countries, especially those countries like Saudi Arabia, that said Qatar is a terrorist organization. It's not a country. Qatar is funding terrorist activities, coming in as economic saviors of some countries in Africa, while they are sponsoring terror groups that are expanding on the coastal line of the Indian Ocean up to Mozambique. It is therefore my duty as an African and us as Africans to point out these mistakes, such that the people can take these mistakes, correct them, and point out to Qatar to stop funding terror activities. Two, it is also very important for the people of Kenya to know that Al-Shabaab, Eritrea, Ethiopia are trading out a deal that will leave Kenya and Uganda in a mess. It is important that Farimajo should not lie to you that he is not having these deals or these negotiations are not taking place. We have evidence, concrete in black and white, of these meetings that are taking place on a daily basis in one of the capitals of the world called Doha and Asmara. These meetings have been taking place, and they are taking place, and that is why the United Nations Security Council failed to condemn Al-Shabaab as a terrorist group. One would wonder, why condemn the Taliban? Why condemn Boko Haram? But you failed to condemn Al-Shabaab, which has killed us Kenyans, killed us Ugandans, killed Somalis in hundreds and hundreds. Why? 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 Can a government of Farimajo guarantee our peace? The shooting down of a plane commandeered by Ethiopians who are guarding the ground at the flower, who were told the plane had a humanitarian agency, is very dangerous. There is no diplomacy here. The truth must prevail. Ethiopia should stop engaging itself in activities that are going to create hegemony of the world's hegemony in the region. Thank you very much. God bless all of you. God bless Africa. God bless the Pearl of Africa. God bless Kenya. Keep our troops in Kismayo. Give them strength. Our troops in Mogadishu. Give them strength. We shall, tomorrow or days to come, talk to the owner of the plane that was brought down. We are going to expose all this. We have evidence. It's not local, it is inside. We know what happens and we know what is taking place. Farimajo, Hassan Hari have become axes of evil. Thank you.
My name is Bishop Dr. John Warari. I come to you to give you hope. 80% of those who have the infection are recovering. So we must not lose hope. Follow the instructions of the Ministry of Health. Simple instructions. 1, we have been told to sanitize, to clean our hands as often as possible. As you wash your hands, do it for about 20 seconds. That one will keep away and destroy the virus that could have been in your hands. It is important for us not to use our hands in greeting each other. For more information, kindly dial 719 and you will get help, or you can go to your phone and press *719# and you will get more information. Komesha Corona.
Viewers and the comrades, the people, the Pan-African people of Africa, and mainly the people of Kenya. Elections in Africa create difficulties. Everywhere in Africa, you find conflicts emanating from elections. Results declared, the loser does not come out to concede. Elections, if not well managed, can trigger the worst crisis for any nation in Africa. It is therefore very prudent for the people of Kenya not to buy populist ideas and forget the hinge point of electoral reforms, electoral injustices, electoral systems, mechanisms that can change Kenya and bring a credible results of an election where the losers and the winner will agree this was a fair contest. Given that circumstances, the circumstances that surround our badly managed elections, Kenya faces this challenge. A referenda of reducing MPs to 0 does not solve your problem, because that problem of Kenya is a structural challenge. It's a structural challenge in the sense that the structures themselves give access to more money stolen, to more money hidden, to more money misappropriated by various institutions. Therefore, to have credible electoral reforms, credible electoral systems, credible electoral mechanisms will solve 1/3 of the Kenya's problems, in that we shall have credible, proportionally elected people who represent all the views of the people of Kenya. That is my take, and that's the take of anybody who looks at the current situation that any group that would come up and does not discuss the question of elections in Africa and in Kenya as a case study, and use it and look at how many dead bodies do we always collect when we mention the word elections. It is all over Africa. In Uganda, it is happening. In Zimbabwe, as we speak now, they are on the streets of Harare. It's because of elections. They want to come and overthrow and break down everything in Zimbabwe. It's elections. So elections in Africa create conflicts. But how can we stop violence before and after elections? Is through proportional representation of the model of South Africa, which has held elections, but there's peace on the streets of the cities. Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you very much, my people of Kenya. That's my message. I stand to be corrected, but I think it is only until you get a proportional representation system that will deliver every part of this country into your house of representation, into your elections, is when stability and tranquility will be permanent forever in this country. Thank you.
I want to start by thanking you for joining us to this brief for the day. Today, we are opening yet another phase in this fight against this deadly disease. As you are aware, His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday made some very critical pronouncements on the way forward. First, not to repeat, but just to highlight that movement in Eastleigh, Nairobi, and Old Town, Mombasa were lifted. And this lift of restrictions also applied to Kwale and Kilifi counties. Now, it is important for us to clarify that these actions do not mean that the areas that were affected are now COVID-free. It is simply because the observance of what we have been saying in those areas and the isolation of the cases, of the many cases that were in those areas, have been having an effect, and consequently the number of cases that we pick from there are less and no more than other areas. And that's why we said that those areas. That's why the president ordered that action. But I repeat that it is not that the transmission of the virus in those areas has slowed down. And I want to appeal to the residents of the 4 areas not to become complacent and abandon all the containment measures. Any behavior to the contrary is likely to roll back the gains that have been made so far. Let me reiterate that the directive that closed down bars that sell alcohol has also not been lifted, because there has been those who have been saying that they are now free to start partaking of some of these things, some of them even saying that they are now free to order one Kagwe special. I would like to clarify that that is not the case. And we have also noted that various facilities opening for business and selling alcohol are on the increase, particularly in some estates in Nairobi, in Westlands, in the Kilimani area. We have taken note. And I would like to propose to the owners of those places to quickly, very quickly, follow the directives that we have given. Otherwise, if you are caught selling alcohol, opening a bar, your license is likely to be withdrawn, and for that matter, withdrawn permanently without any possibility of reopening again. Fellow Kenyans, you will also recall that the President reviewed the dusk to dawn curfew timings that have been in place for the last several weeks. This again is to allow for both employers and employees to have a full day of work shifts. We still continue to encourage those who can to work from home. And I think there is a good development here where some people have developed such a good way of working at home that is likely that that is how they are going to continue working even post-COVID. So we would like to encourage the use of technology. We would like to encourage as many people as possible to continue working from home. But in the event that, for instance, you are in Kazi kwa Mitaa and other areas that we have allowed, it means that you are able to take, to give a bit more time to work, and hopefully that has an impact on the economy. It will also allow those who are in marketplaces, provided that they are following the protocols, to be able to sell a bit more mamambogas and so on and so forth, to increase a little bit the activities that they are doing. And it is important for us to reiterate that this is being done on the understanding that Kenyans are now aware, on the understanding that we comprehend and we will be following these rules, because the escalation or de-escalation of the measures purely depend on what happens when we loosen a little bit. It is that understanding that we now have a partnership between each other, between the government and its people, between the people themselves, in between families. It is on the understanding that we understand what is going on around our country, that we are able to make people take more responsibility, because the more we open up, the more responsibility is given to Kenyans themselves. So I want to emphasize on the importance of individual responsibility in this fight. As we consider opening up more and more, it will be important that every person plays his or her role in the quest to limit the spread of the infections. It is now close to 90 days since our first case, and in that period, we are now better informed about our individual responsibility in this campaign. And I would like here to thank those in Nyumba Kumis, particularly upcountry in the rural areas, who have taken a very serious attitude about new entrance into the community, new entrance into the counties, and reporting any case, particularly the cases of individuals who have traveled from epicenters of the disease such as Nairobi and Mombasa, traveling up country. And I can tell you that they have taken it seriously. I want to thank the chiefs. I want to thank the sub-chiefs, chairman of Nyumba Kumi. You are doing a sterling job in informing the authorities and ensuring that you as a community speak to persons concerned and ask them to leave as quickly as possible. And that has been effective. And it is going to be even more effective when we start community health care, community care, and also more effective when we start quarantining in homes. Because it then becomes the responsibility of the Nyumba Kumis, the responsibility of families, the responsibility of sub-chiefs to ensure that those who are self-quarantining do so. It's because there will be those who will do so very effectively and very efficiently, but we are also aware that there are Kenyans who will not do that. So I would like to
Kenya is a model of peace, an island of peace in the region of turmoil. Kenya presents a unique position in the sense that the banking, the economic hub of the Great Lakes region, the ticking veins of this region remain here. Despite the few hiccups, Kenya has been the center of international conferences ranging from UN. Kenya is also equally the headquarters of one of the major offices of the United Nations in South of Sahara. The United Nations offices in Gigir present a position, a very unique position for this country called Kenya to take on the mantle to lead the other states within the sub-Saharan region for the year 2022. It is therefore very, very important for us to support the Kenyan people, the Kenyan nation, the Kenyan government in search for this slot. The question of my dear brothers of Djibouti, I am a Pan-African. But we have had countries in Africa that always violate African Union Charter and regulations. One of them is Morocco. which said for 32 years it was not a member of African Union until it saw its own isolation that it decided to apply to be reactivated.
Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting all the way from the Republic of Kenya. In the studios, we have Margaret Miriam Ogutu. Sorry about that. We have Miriam Ogutu, our senior researcher, senior anchor. Good morning, Miriam.
A very good morning. I thought you wanted to call me Margaret Thatcher there for a second.
Oh my God.
Good morning to
Someone
you.
was making an argument about Margaret Thatcher,
Okay.
how he ruled Britain.
Yes.
So we have had just a very big struggle here. But sorry, I can't do that. But thank you very much. This is our show, Diplomatic Leaks. In Diplomatic Leaks, we look at what is trending worldwide. What are people talking about? What are diplomats planning to do? You know, diplomacy is purely intelligence. There's no diplomacy. Nobody should tell you that there is a diplomat who doesn't know or who doesn't have a brief of being the ears for his country. It is purely intelligence. Any student watching this morning, take it from me. It is that type of snooping into people, snooping, looking, snitching into people's affairs. It's diplomacy. You can't be in New York and then you don't know there is corona in the entire New York City and the governor is quarreling with Trump. That is the work of any diplomat. That when your country asks you, what position can we take? You simply tell them, I think this is not a good idea for Kenya or for Uganda or for any country that you might be representing as a diplomat. Diplomacy at times is very awkward. At times is skewed against yourself. You take decisions that you don't want to take. Some of them, you see the wrongs. For example, tell me how a man representing Trump would be telling an African in Zimbabwe that United States of America has human rights. Tell me how Trump would be telling us in Africa that we value every human life. We value black, yellow, purple, pink human being. We have them equal rights. We give them access to law. We give them access to arrests. When we arrest a black man in Michigan, in Minnesota, in Texas, we treat him the same way we treat a white man in New York City or in Alaska or in any other state, my famous state where Carolina, my best state, where hurricane, there's a famous hurricane in Miriam that came and swept, where people play jazz.
That is
How do you
New Orleans,
convince an African on this continent today that America has human rights? How do you tell Africans to be able to protest, to be allowed to protest? And you tell Africans that go and protest. One of the reasons why Trump has refused to remove sanctions against my dearest country, Zimbabwe, the one I would die crying, Zimbabwe, a country where we could go for honeymoon, a country that has been reduced to rubble because of American hegemony, a country that has been mutilated by sanctions imposed on companies that banks cannot operate with their own money, a country that cannot sell its diamonds. Let me remove the specs so that I come for this America. America, a dream that kills people for $20 note. A man who put up a $20 note. A country which has got machines that can check that $20 note is fake or not. You kill a man. A country burning today because of excessive power pumped by their president, engineered by their president. What the hell are we doing? Where are we? How are we? What life are we imparting to the people of the world? A country that has got no ground to speak about human rights abuses in Africa. America today is cheaper, easier to live in Equatorial Guinea, under Nguesso, under Obiango, than living in America if you are black-skinned. Therefore, diplomacy is the game of the fittest. If you are not fit to play an international role, you pack up and ship up and go 6 feet down. If America says it will kill you, they come for you. I want to tell you that America is built on violence, Miriam. Double standards. Violence, double standards is the norm that has killed America. America is a country from the time of inception of the great America. The dream has been violence, and the violence alone. And I believe our production can bring some of the violent acts that are taking shape on the streets of New York before we come to our main topic. We want this will shape how people are going to vote. This will shape how Kenyan friends will vote on 17th of this month. We have a testy case that we have been telling people that there are countries in Africa that come and cry crocodile tears on our food and the sunshine, but they don't mean well for us. I have been saying for all these years that there is need for Kenya to review its strategy against certain countries. I have been crying all along that why a country like America can fail to gazette Al-Shabaab as a terrorist group. I've been crying why America rejects a United Nations security proposal by Kenya to gazette Al-Shabaab as a terrorist group that maims, that kills, that has destroyed and killed the people of this nation. I have always looked at the values of what America stands for. I find them very ironical that at the same time they come to Africa to police us, they cannot give rights to the people who pay taxes in their own country. At the same time, when they come to take our minerals, the oil, tell us what human rights are. They don't stand for human rights in their own nation. At the same time, they put sanctions on Zimbabwe. They kill, suffocate Zimbabwe. They said Mugabe was bad, Mugabe is dead. Why then do you fix sanctions on another man who is not Mugabe? Why kill this country today? As much as we want to speak nicely to America, time has come for us as Africans to review our policy towards America. The coronavirus, COVID-19, is going to place us in the crossroads of ambiguity. There will be a lot of ambiguity. There will be a lot of misfire. There will be a lot of condemnation. There will be a lot of regime change, instigation of violence on African continent to create a situation where Africa will always be at the center, the epic center of violence. It is us in Kenya, for example. Why did we end up in the ICC? And yet America does not like ICC. The crimes committed by the police in America deserve to be checked by international courts. The excess, force used against particular tribes or particular ethnic minorities, like the Latinos, the Black Africans, the Negro Africans, is should that if it is only this case of Floyd George that has brought on the surface the dangers of how America is a violent state. America is a violent state because it was built on violence. America believes in violence, but it preaches to Africa not to conduct violence. We Africans are not violent people, but people come here to sell us arms to become violent. If you look at the dimensions of what is happening around the Great Horn of East Africa, you will understand what I'm talking about. And that's the violence. If you look at what is happening in Amazonia, you will understand what I'm talking about. There are two countries in the world that have dismembered this world, France and America. If you look at what is happening in Libya, you'll know what I'm talking about. In Amazonia, they watch the slaughter of innocent Amazonians. In Libya, they watch the slaughter of Libyans. Tell me where we have been, where we went wrong. On that note, with that introduction, I want to bring the topic of today, which I want to request Miriam to slowly read it and pose the questions under it.
All right.
Over to you, Miriam.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that introduction. And our topic for today, this is Diplomatic Leaks, supporting Kenya for the non-permanent United Nations Security Council seat. And the question you seek to answer today: how much is our support 9 days before vote? And the second one, can Kenya clinch it? And let me just give our viewers a background of this story here. Now, the African Union endorsed Kenya for the UN Security Council seat after it defeated Djibouti with 37 votes against 13. Voting had to go for the second round at AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. That is sometimes last year in August. And in round one, Kenya got 34, Djibouti got 15 with 2 abstentions. Now, the continental approval means Kenya becomes Africa's sole candidate for the race to win the non-permanent seat for the 2021-2022. And Kenya, which had campaigned for the seat globally, had initially won the vote on August 5th, defeating Djibouti So, however, because of the rules of procedure which require that substantial decisions be made on a 2/3 majority, a rule calculated on the basis of the total of 55 member states of the African Union meant Nairobi had at least fallen short of that. But traditionally, AU usually supports one candidate for the UN Security Council non-permanent seat. And then Djibouti's ambassador to the African Union, Mohamed Idris Farah, said his country conceded defeat and congratulated Nairobi for the victory after that victory. But later on, the backpedaled and said that they will still continue to go and vie for that United Nations Security Council non-permanent seat this year. All right, so we see there, but even with this endorsement from the AU, Kenya must still win at least 2/3 votes of the UN member states when the election is held in New York, that is in June. Just a couple of days away. So, Doctor, that is just a bit of a background of why we must have this conversation today and where Kenya is today in regards to the United Nations Security Council non-permanent membership there. All right. I think his doctor is a little. He'll be back. We're having a problem with the signal, but he'll be back. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm back, Miriam.
All right. Very well.
So thank you very much. That is the question that has been put. The African Union sat last year, decided that they will back Kenya for the United Nations non-permanent membership, rotational seat, which falls vacant every 2 years. After the elections in Addis Ababa, Djibouti, a partly African and Arab country, because that's what they call themselves. They pick a lot of allegiance from the Arab League of Nations. And then they pick a lot of allegiance from the French-speaking countries. The problem of what we are going to witness on 17th of June, when elections in for this position takes place, is this one. Africa will be now officially divided on the French and Anglo-speaking nations in front of the world body of the United Nations. I want to speak this as an African who follows the founding fathers of this organization called AU, which is renamed AU after Organization of African Unity, that celebrated last week 57 years. I want to speak as a man who cries for this continent. I want to speak as a human being who sees the conflicts on this continent that killed the people of Biafra, that killed the people of South Sudan, that killed the people of Libya, that killed the people of Somalia, that killed the people of Amazonia. That today we are in this problem because of the two countries in the world. Today, France has never liked Africa to grow. They still collect tax. They still take our money. We still pay France for colonizing us. The French government has come to Africa. A non-African state has captured our organization. It directs it on where to go, how to do it, when to do it, which way, who should be overthrown, who should be supported, who should be removed from power. A regime change grows on a daily basis. How will Kenya benefit? We would like to see, and I want to be here, I would transmit live the voting that will take place in the General Assembly. The voting which has been allowed that people will vote by secret ballot, but the truth will come out. As we speak today, even the countries that pretend to be supporting Kenya are not supporting Kenya. We have to be very careful and very sincere. Kenya is on its own. Kenya is on its own. Kenya stands on its own feet. There are member states that have agreed to support Kenya. But as we see from the African history of betrayal, of cry the beloved country, continent of Humara, of the tragedy of Africa, of the things fall apart of Chinyao Chebe, of the lion and the jewel of Wall Senyuka, of the river between of Ngugi, Wafyongo. There is always a burden for an African. For every step we have made forward, we have made 3 backwards. If you look at what the Tanzanian president is fuming across, that charge them. How are Tugani? Who are these? Are they not African? I cry for my country. I cry for my continent. I witnessed this 4 years ago when we are selecting Amina Mohammed. We had the worst nightmare where Morocco paid cash money for all hotel bills. All hotel bills for the candidate of Chad to go through. I got the intelligence, the highest intelligence, including the breakfast meeting between the Moroccan Total oil lady with the new chairperson of African Union. I took their picture, which I still have on this phone. The following morning when they were having breakfast in Sheraton Hotel in Addis Ababa, that lady is the chairperson, the managing director, the CEO of Total Oil Africa. It is that lady who has even now gone as far as Djibouti to make sure that Kenya is frustrated. It is that lady who has divided the East African states, putting them at war between Rwanda and Uganda. Because the lady is based in Uganda most of the time. She has become a very senior citizen of the Ugandan capital. That lady, I don't want to say the name so that Africans have different ways of dealing with some people. But it is this lady who has brought Africa to these divisions. She has gone to Djibouti, planted seeds of the French. The Djibouti have gone different way. Will Kenya get this? How many people are supporting Kenya? Frankly speaking, I want to tell you the truth. That our friends are cosmetic. Djibouti has enticed superpowers that the Red Sea port of Djibouti can give you the deep waters of doing your fishing and a plenty of the Navy operation. Even in China, if it was open ballot, some of these countries might not step foot in Africa, in Kenya. I've learned from the behind the scenes gymnastics that people are doing on Kenya that I can only blame one lady, the owner of Total Oil. The second person playing Kenya a game is Qatar. The Qataris have interest in the United Arab Emirates. We always talk about these countries. We give them everything they want. We give them all the hospitality in this country. But they go back to backstab us. Qatar has influenced Somalia to vote against us. Somalia is not going to vote for Kenya. It is a sad story that Kenyans must know, why are we in Somalia anyway? To protect our integrity and national borders. Why is it any diplomat in Nairobi, seated in the Foreign Affairs Ministry, can Namwamba tell me why the United Nations Security Council failed to gazette Al-Shabaab as a terrorist group? Just give me a glimpse. Give me, please give me an answer. Why? Why? Why has an organization that has killed us, maimed us, bombed us, destroyed our property, not gazetted? Yet, one African who loaned us $1, if your money is $2 million and it's gazetted to come, and you add $1, $2 million and $1, you will be taken to America for money laundering. But why did America, Norway, Turkey, Qatar refuse Al-Shabaab to be gazetted? Another matrix, of course, there's one country that is going to vote with its feet, its stomach, its brain on Kenya. That's Britain. They have accepted to vote to back Kenya in the bid. Those are the true friends that you have. The rest of these other friends, believe me or not, there is a very huge problem as we see what is going to happen in times to come. Miriam, continue from there.
All right, thank you so much. And last year we saw efforts by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to broker a deal between President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya and Djibouti's President Ismail Omar on the margins of the UN General Assembly failed to sway the country into dropping its bid. So even the AU then, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi was the chairperson of the AU then, and he tried to talk to the Djibouti's president to tell him to drop the bid, since the AU had already supported Kenya in that regard. So on this year, in June, as Dr. there has said, on the 17th of June, to be precise, just about 8 days away, during the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly held at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. The elections are for the 5 non-permanent seats on the UN Secretary Council for 2 years, mandating that is supposed to be commencing on the 1st of January 2021. But doctor, as things are, because we know New York is the epicenter of coronavirus in the United States, are you foreseeing this meeting or this General Assembly session being held this year in June, or there are possibilities of moving the date forward? All right, we'll have him back, but he's not there. But we have that challenge, and this vote is supposed to take place on the 17th of June to determine who in Africa will join this come 1st of January 2021, and so that vote will be taking place there. So in accordance with the Security Council's rotational rules, whereby the 10 non-permanent UN Security Council seats rotate among the various regional blocks into which UN member states traditionally divide themselves for the voting and representation purposes. The 5 available seats are located as follows: 1 for Africa, 1 for the Asia Pacific group, 1 for Latin America and the Caribbean, 2 for the Western Europe and other groups, and the 5 members will serve on the Security Council for the 2021-2022 period there. So the Africa mandate, Kenya is seeking to win the non-permanent seat, of course, for the 2021-2022 period. Now, non-permanent members may not have a vote on substantial matters, but they may hold rotational presidency, which gives a chance to push through agenda there. And just so you know, Kenya has a 10-point agenda for the role that it is seeking to have there, and maybe I should just outline and see what really why Kenya is seeking this role at the United Nations Security Council. So the following are Kenya's pledges in case it is given this position. Number 1, building bridges, a strong advocate for a reformed, strengthened and representative United Nations rooted at the center of rules-based international system. Kenya will promote a culture of peace, tolerance and of respect for human dignity and aspirations. Number 2, regional peace and security. Build appropriate linkages between UN and African bodies to help solve regional conflicts to prevent them. And then number 3, justice, human rights and democracy. And that is, under that, Kenya says that it will seek to promote ideas that create a useful environment for a just society. And number 4, peacekeeping operations. And under that, Kenya seeks to have the United Nations Security Council provide clear mandate and financial support for peacekeeping operations, especially here in the continent and across other places that we've seen being ravaged by civil wars and other kinds of wars. And number 5, gender equality. Promote policies that will ensure women, men participate in conflict resolution programs. And also number 6, humanitarian action. Seek lasting solutions to challenges of forced migration. We've seen how many Africans have been dying in the Mediterranean going up, and also a lot of Kenyans, not a lot of Kenyans, but a lot of Africans are now moving from their countries to other African countries because of the wars and the instabilities in their countries. So Kenya will be seeking to find a lasting solution to challenges of forced migration. And number 7, climate change. Seek lasting solutions to security challenges caused by erratic climatic conditions. We've seen how that has worked out in the recent past. And number 8, youth empowerment. Promote actions that include youth participation in key programs. And number 9, I'm reading some of the Kenya's agendas should Kenya be given this position. And agenda number 9 for Kenya is sustainable development. That is synergize UN SDGs for 2030 and AU's agenda 2063. And the last one, before Doctor comes in, number 10, that is counter-terrorism, promote regional and global cooperation against terror merchants. And Kenya would be the right person to come out and help in terms of counter-terrorism, because we have suffered firsthand and we know what terrorism activities can do to a people and a country, as we have seen. Of course, in the recent past, Kenya has really upped its intelligence. So we've seen a lot of that subside, but we've seen also a lot of Kenyans suffer due to that. So, Doctor, looking at the Kenya's pledges, why it wants this position at the United Nations Security Council, we start with the first one, building of bridges. And Kenya says it will strongly advocate for a reformed, strengthened and representative United Nations rooted at the center. Yes.
First of all, before you go further, that one does not fit on international scene. That's a wrong one. So, you also read it, that a person from Philippines, what is he going to talk about? He doesn't want to listen to that. A person from Philippines wants to see how Kenya has kept peace in this region. That's all.
It has that. It has that on number 5, I think.
Yeah, Kenya has kept peace. Kenya is a beacon of peace. Kenya has never had very serious, ambitious ways to fight any other country. Kenya only keeps peace. So when you talk about an internal policy going to help an external, it doesn't, that is not what, are you seeing the point I'm making?
But under there it says Kenya will promote a culture of peace, tolerance and respect of human dignity and aspirations. That does not capture it enough, because under that, the same point, it has that.
That is better, but you don't bring in the handshake. You've seen that? That one does not, nobody wants to know it. If I was asked about it, I would say, we take the other one, but we don't mention. Our internal reforms are our internal reforms. They don't occur a diplomat wanting to vote you from Venezuela who has a record to write. Those, they are already aware of that. Tell them what you will add on. What will be added on your value if you become a non-permanent member on the Security Council? How much you know about regional peace? What have you done in peacekeeping efforts? Those are the points that sell.
And that point is in number 2, regional peace and security. Build appropriate linkages between you and...
That is why I agree with you, but I am saying...
But I don't think when they said building bridges that they really meant the handshake we have here, because what you're seeing, the points there is totally outside of what we have here with the BB and all that. So it's not really that. It's building bridges with other things outside the international system, as they say here, so that we promote culture of peace, because we know there's a lot of things that are happening, not just in Africa, but even in Asia. We see the civil wars and all that. And there has been a disconnect in the manner in which the United Nations has been dealing with these problems. I think that is where Kenya is coming from. It has nothing to do with the BBI or building of bridges here. I think maybe the usage of word might confuse a few, but it has not captured the BBI and all the handshake and all that. That is not what Kenya says here, from what I'm reading.
Yes, you are that is okay, but I'm saying building bridges. I hope our diplomats don't reach there and tell us about this building bridges. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
But Kenya has built bridges.
Yes.
That is the basis that is in part of our doctrine of politics of cohesion, politics of togetherness, that has enabled them to build bridges. So when you know our detractors, when they want to ask you a question to fail, they say, which bridges are you talking about? At home, the bridges are scattered. So such a word, for me, I would not have used it if I were in the Foreign Affairs Ministry.
All right.
I would have used stuck on unity of purpose without bringing in something where you'd be linked to bridges. You know, some of these diplomats who are seated in Nairobi don't understand English. They write in their mother tongues when they are presenting their reports back to their governments. So they will think bridges is different. But anyhow, that's not a very big worry. The worry, Miriam, here is the external powerful powers that always dictate African politics. Where Africa, how the world will vote. You know very well, France takes a chunk in the United Nations Security Council. It has more countries in the UN than any other former colonizers. So France has a leverage over these other countries by saying Djibouti supported them. Quietly, they have been doing that. But one question that remains lingering in my mind as we come to the conclusion, how much we wanted to bring notice to the Kenyan people that as much as we are on COVID-19, there is something very important that we have scored or we intend to score. We scored the maritime. It went down until next year when we meet Mr. Hassan Hari. We want also Kenyans to pray for this nation, to pray for the country called Kenya, to get this seat. Miriam, a great pattern has started growing in Kenya. From last week, you notice that NGOs headed by Chief Justice Maraga they have been putting this government in bad taste. As we speak right now, first they hire journalists to talk about police brutality, because the voting is coming here next week. There will be a vote sometime next week. Today's 8th, 15th, Wednesday next week, which will be 17th. In the United Nations General Assembly, they will be voting. And guess what the NGOs and the George Soros has done? He has now told Maraga, Chief Justice Maraga, to come back on his feet to criticize the president directly. Last week, Justice Maraga wrote a stinking letter. Justice Maraga has never gone to school to study governance. He doesn't know what governance is. But I am diverting from the main diplomatic league to show you the pattern that is derailing Kenya's international image. If you have a Chief Justice condemning the government as autocratic, that Uhuru Kenyatta does not obey the law, what do you think other governments, what do you think other governments will do? Tell me. Tell me. The whole Chief Justice of Kenya is condemning his government at a time when the government is struggling with COVID-19, saying personally, he has just said in his press conference that the government that displaces people in Kariobangi, I can send it to you for the people, maybe you want it? Let people see what type of Chief Justice we have. If this is the Chief Justice that you are looking for, then this country has a lot to learn about, to learn from. If this is the Chief Justice, Stephen, bring that. He has just addressed a press conference now condemning the government. Then when you look at the media, some media section has been documenting the police brutality to equate it with the American police brutality. I tell you, Miriam, here we have a problem. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm sure the police brutality in America is quite different from what we see here. But of course, there are some cases that have been reported, and I'm sure the Ministry of the people responsible for that are looking into that report, even that was released by IPOA, and I'm sure they will do the right thing there. But now, Doctor, this session is supposed to be happening on the 17th. Will it happen, seeing that the New York is the epicenter of coronavirus in the United States, and will the members really convene this year?
The UN has put a mechanism for voting by security ballot.
Okay.
Their ambassadors are in New York. They will vote through Zoom or postal vote. Each country by now must have received a postal vote. And are voting by acclamation, not acclamation, by secret ballot. Then it will be announced by the General Assembly who has won. But as we speak now, we still have Djibouti has not weakened its stand or has not tried to withdraw at all. The countries that I've mentioned to you, France, Qatar, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and the United States of America, and China again, they are still on that periphery because they have been promised bases.
Yes.
For example, Norway, China, and other countries are looking for bases in Djibouti. So this is what the Chief Justice, this is your Chief Justice of Kenya. This is what he says. So can such a person work with the president? This man, people told me to lower down the temperature. I lowered down the temperature. But we must go for this guy again. If President Uhuru Kenyatta wants to keep a legacy, he can only keep a legacy when you have tackled the problem of Chief Justice Maraga. Maraga is not a very good person to remain in your government for the next 6 to 7 months. He's not a very good man at all. So let's pray for Kenya. Let's support Kenya worldwide. Whatever you are in the government listening, tell your government to support Kenya in their bid for the slot.
And Doctor, before we end, there's something important here that Djibouti brought up when it was lobbying for this, and maybe let me just read this. Now, the African Union, which has no vote at the United Nations, traditionally agrees to endorse member states to act in its name at the UN Security Council, but Djibouti thinks otherwise. At its recent launch for its candidature, Djibouti's Foreign Minister Mohamed Yusuf Ali threw an indirect jab at Kenya, claiming only his country was capable of helping stabilize Somalia. And he said, speaking to an audience of diplomats in Djibouti, he argued that Kenya's maritime boundary dispute with Somalia could see it use the position to exert undue pressure on Mogadishu and hence destabilize the country even more. So I don't know why Djibouti is finding a need to politicize this matter that is already very delicate between Kenya and Somalia, and it is using this to try to prove that Kenya should not get this position.
You know that the matrix, it has brought in a very different matrix, that the conflict in the Indian Ocean could disadvantage Kenya on the maritime border dispute of the Indian Ocean blocks, could complicate Kenya's. Yes, they have something that they have been plotting on that lake, because they are saying this is a country that is going to sit on the same body that can say, that can bring, that can decide the withdrawal of such a case, and can decide that we don't want this case to be arbitrated upon. So they are using that as a campaigning tool to persuade the detractors of Kenya to use that to deny Kenya a slot. You are right.
And during that time, of course, the Djibouti's permanent representative to the United Nations, Mr. Mohamed Said Douale, said that Kenya's elections victory at the AU was irregular, even though Djibouti took place in the polls twice and conceded defeat. So how is it that it is irregular, and yet you took part in that election, Djibouti? Come on.
Well, countries that always do well in Africa pay a price of that nature. That's all I can tell you.
All right. All right.
Thank you very much.
So
our diplomatic leaks returns again next week, or returns this week at a certain time when we watch the events unfold as to why Tanzania, for example, has not shown us the number. The last figure we read from Tanzania was 509.
yeah, still there, but the president
And
is
that
saying
all.
the cases are
Is
over.
there anything anybody knows why Tanzania does not give us the figures of COVID-19? Talk to us, write to us, send an email on africastrategy@hotmail.com. I'll use that material sparingly.
Yes, indeed. And maybe perhaps history is repeating itself with this case, with this United Nations Security Council and permanent membership between Kenya and Djibouti, because we see it is not entirely new. In 1960, a race for Europe's representative went for more than 50 rounds between Poland and Turkey, producing a no-clear winner. They later agreed to share out their 2-year term. The Netherlands and Italy also failed to agree in 2016, so they shared the seat. So this is not the first time we're seeing such kind of gymnastics, but I think the politics over there are different from here in sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Miriam.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.